Today we are going to be talking about the brand new Khaki Field Murph, or actually the Murphs, shall I say. These have just been released literally today, and we're going to be getting hands-on, covering everything that you need to know about these models, as well as why I think this is a very significant release for Hamilton in this collection. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always. And this is a really interesting release to me for a couple of different reasons, but the main reason being that Hamilton Khaki Field Murph, the collection of the Murph, is becoming its own little sub-genre of the Khaki Field range, its own little family in its own right. It's almost like the Amiga Seamaster. You've got the Amiga Aquaterra, the Amiga Seamaster 300 meters, you've got the Amiga Planet Ocean. You've got tons of different caveats to that family. I believe this is becoming, the Murph is becoming its own sub-genre of the Khaki Fields family. By the way, guys, before we move any further, if you do enjoy these videos, please consider hitting that subscribe button to help us reach our next goal of 75 or 100k, and also our next giveaway. So the Khaki Field Murph was first seen in Interstellar in 2014, and Hamilton actually created this watch specifically for the movie. 5 years later, they released the first Murph watch to the general public so we could buy it. And this was the model that had the Morse code on the second hand. And on the Morse code in the second hand, it said Eureka. Now, that was such a cool kind of nerdy detail that all the watch enthusiasts loved, including myself. And it kind of gave a real nod to the movie which made the watch popular. Now, a couple of years later in 2022, they released the Khaki Field Murph Mini, if you want to call it that, in 38mm with the leather strap. And there was a huge boom around that because what was a 42mm variant in the original Murph had slimmed down to 38mm. And that made it a lot more wearable for everyone, literally everyone. And now, in 2024, they've given you a 38mm Murph with a bracelet, and also, this is my favorite, giving you a Murph with a white dial and a leather strap. And that watch, this watch, oh, let's just start covering it now because it's nice. So both of these models come in at 38mm in diameter and 11.1mm in thickness. The lug-to-lug comes in at 44.7mm, and they wear just absolutely brilliantly on the wrist. Now, obviously, one has that kind of iconic leather strap, and the leather strap was obviously used in the Interstellar movie, but on the left-hand side, one with the bracelet, you can see that, obviously, it has a bracelet, and the bracelet hasn't been done before on the Murph watches. Now, the Khaki Field Murph has pretty long lugs, and I do think that that is better suited to the leather strap as it gives it that kind of more vintage classic vibe, but the bracelet is quite good. It's a 3-link bracelet coming in stainless steel, and it has a deployment clasp at the bottom here. Now, something that you might not notice at first glance is that it actually has a quick release function in the bracelet. So all you need to do is pinch these little two levers together, and boop, that's it off, and then you can slide it back in and release, and that's it back on. So it has a quick release function on the strap, which is really, really nice, but on the Murph with the leather strap, it doesn't have that because it's a leather strap. The 3-link bracelet on the bracelet version is in matte, so it has kind of a brushed finish, but at the clasp, it does have two shiny, polished kind of strips running down both sides. Honestly, I'm unsure why they put this at the clasp, because the clasp is the first thing to scratch when you're at a desk especially, so I would steer clear of polished metal on the clasp, but it does give it a nice aesthetic. It seriously does. Both of these watches come in stainless steel, and the outer kind of bezel, the limited bezel, is highly, highly polished. Now, although this does give a fantastic look to this watch, and it's definitely a really big throwback to the movie, it would scratch that little bit easier. And just as an example, I have the Khaki Field Expedition on today, and the Expedition has kind of a brushed compass bezel. Now, brushed steel doesn't show scratches as much or as quickly as polished, in my opinion. So there is a little bit of an issue there. I think it's definitely feeding into the more dressy category for me. And on that note, what is on your wrist today? Please let me know in the comments. It's time for the Chisholm Hunter tradition, which of course is the wrist check. I have the Hamilton Khaki Field Expedition, and this is the one with the compass bezel, and I actually put the NATO strap on it from my old Khaki Field, which is here. Oh my God, I'm surrounded by Khaki Fields. Moving away from that bracelet and taking a look at the white dial with the leather strap, it has a dark, really dark brown leather strap that almost looks black in certain lights, and it has white stitching up the side, or kind of tanned white looking stitching. Now, leather straps have never really been for me, and I'll tell you why. I feel like they sit on my wrist a little bit odd. They sit on the bone. They don't have as much give to them. However, I was talking to one of you guys at one of the Chisholm Hunter events. I don't want to name you, but you know who you are. And he said to me, well, that's the point with a leather strap. You need to wear it to break it in. It's almost like getting a leather shoe. You need to give it some wear so that you can break it in and so that it fits your foot exactly. That's the same as a leather strap. And I kind of got the cogs turning, and I have an Oris Artillery skeleton watch with a leather strap. And that leather strap sits so much nicer on the wrist because, technically speaking, I suppose I've broken it into my wrist. So it's funny what you pick up in the watch industry. I was so opposed to leather straps, but now that I've learned that, I kind of want this. When we dive into the dial on the black model variant, we can see that it is, well, it's black. And the numerals are big and bold, just what we love from the Hamilton Khaki Field range, and they all come in this beautiful tanned color, as well as the minute hand, second hand, and obviously the hour hand. Now this kind of tanned color gives it a more vintage vibe, and it definitely fits into that interstellar world. And if you haven't seen the movie, definitely go watch it. Then when we look at the white dial, and this is where I think they've nailed it especially. The white dial combined with that tanned beigey numerals and tanned beigey looking hands plays absolutely wonderful. And then when you combine it with that highly reflective, really limited bezel that it has around the, I was going to say around the edges. It has no edges because it's a circle. So around the circle of the bezel, it looks like white on tanned, and it remains really easy to read, but gives it a vintage flair. Now, when you pair that with the leather strap, aesthetically, it's such a Instagrammable watch. It just looks so unbelievably sexy. Now, to top it off, those big, bold numerals combined with those hands, the kind of tan beigey hands, have beautiful superluminova. It shines bright, bright green, and because they're so big and legible, it increases, you guessed it, the legibility. This watch is waterproof to 100 meters and does have sapphire crystal glass with anti-reflective coating. It does carry through a lot of the same DNA as the Khaki Field range, as that field watch that we all kind of know and love from Hamilton, but it kind of has tweaks, it has quirks to it that are a bit odd, but kind of work. It's a little bit like having a really artistic friend. Sometimes, this is literally me by the way, I'm a little bit strange, I'm a little bit weird, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just makes me unique. At least that's what my mum says. When we flip these watches round, we can see that they have an open caseback. Now, this open caseback reveals the H10 movement. And the H10 movement can be seen in multiple watches throughout Hamilton's range. And it's a pretty good movement. I mean, it is a powerhouse of a movement. It is mass-produced. It is an ETA movement, but it is a powerhouse. I mean, the H10 movement that's in the back of this has 80 hours of power. 80 hours of power in an 11.1 millimeter thick case. That's pretty awesome. Listen, guys, you know me. I'm such a sucker for white dials. I mean, case in point is on my wrist at the moment. I just think they give such a clean, aesthetic look to this watch. Now, if you want the outdoorsy models, if you are a traveler, if you enjoy hiking and Monroes and climbing and all that kind of stuff, I would probably stick with the normal Khaki Field range because that is where the military-esque feel comes in. But if, like me, you do a bit of both, you dabble in the office, but you also dabble outside, I would go for this. I would seriously consider it. And as I go through my kind of watch collecting journey, I've definitely wanted to start collecting within specific ranges. And the Hamilton Khaki Field range is a range that I want to start collecting multiple different models of. I mean, I've got the Khaki Field Mechanical, which I'm sending back for a service really soon. I've got the Expedition. A Murph would make a pretty awesome addition to that collection. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please consider hitting that subscribe button or follow our Instagram at Chisholm Hunter Watches or my Instagram at HB Lifelens or follow our podcast at Into the Mind Podcast. And I'll see you guys real soon.